Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
We are continuing to talk about dance marathons in today's program. And, of course, those are endurance competitions where you try to dance as long as you can. And, of course, if you're good, you can dance for several days. And if you can outlast your competition, you will win a lot of money.
We're going to talk more about this, and when we left you, we had just had the Wall Street crash of 29 happen, and we're going to go ahead and continue on from there. But first, we're going to read through our lesson.
The Great Depression brought hardships and suffering throughout the U.S., but people kept on dancing. The attraction of dance marathons persisted, with audiences keen for any kind of distraction from their misery. The events went on for even longer, but competitors still preferred endless dancing to being unemployed and homeless. One man who made a name for himself in this era was Callum DeVille. Alongside his partner, Vonnie Kuczynski, he emerged victorious from one dance marathon that lasted from December 1932 to June the following year, all for a cash reward of $1,000. You might wonder how this feat was achieved. Dance marathons had rules to protect the health of the participants who weren't required to dance without pausing. Dancers could take a 15-minute break every hour to eat or use the bathroom. However, this had to be done in shifts, so one partner danced alone while the other freshened up. They could also take turns sleeping. Despite these rules, dance marathons could still be fatal. One man, Homer Morehouse, collapsed on the dance floor and died of exhaustion after dancing for 87 hours. The dance marathon craze eventually ran its course. World War II and the subsequent economic boom meant people no longer needed to dance for days on end just for a little money. In the 1970s, the idea was brought back as a fundraising activity with a 30-hour maximum duration to protect dancers' health. People still take part in 12 or 24-hour dance events for charity, raising money for the kinds of unfortunate souls who once had to move their bodies to music for weeks at a time simply to survive.
Okay, guys, the Great Depression, which happened in 1929, the crash, and then the Great Depression followed. I think it lasted until World War II started. So the Great Depression brought hardships or challenges, but they're even harder than challenges. It involves severe suffering and difficulties that many people find almost impossible to get through a hardship. For example, a family might have their dad lose his job, and it's a hardship trying to pay your bills and make ends meet when you don't have the income you used to have. So, yeah, the Great Depression definitely brought hardships. I think at one point, 30% of the United States was out of work. It was a really tough time. And even those who had jobs, a lot of them weren't very good jobs or they didn't make a lot of money. If you want to see some interesting photos of history, you should go online and check out the photos that were taken. They're black and white photos from the Great Depression era, and the sad little faces of the children who are probably hungry at the time. Yeah, it was a terrible time for a lot of people.
Yep, the Great Depression, and that brought hardships and suffering throughout the U.S. and to other parts of the world. Hardships, of course, are difficult times when you don't have a job, when you're begging for money, when you're homeless or whatever. Those are examples of hardships, or when you lose family members or things like that. When your puppy dies or whatever, those can be difficult times for you, a hardship. But people kept on dancing. They wanted to stay happy, and I think some of the music from the 1930s was pretty good. And the attraction of dance marathons persisted, with audiences keen for any kind of distraction from their misery. If you're keen for something, that means you really would like to see that thing. You're excited about that thing. So this attraction of dance marathons continued Despite the Great Depression, they were still interested in these competitions and audiences. Those are separate groups of people at different venues, not the individual members of an audience. Audiences in different places at different times. They all were keen for any kind of distraction. Yeah, I don't want to think about my problems. I'd rather just forget about those things and go see a movie or go to a dance marathon.
Yeah, you want to escape, don't you? I know when my life gets busy or I have a lot of stress, sometimes I just want to grab a book and read and just get away from everything. That's an escape. Yeah, some people would rather go and escape by playing a video game or maybe going to a movie. There are lots of ways that you can get away from real life. So these events would go on for even longer, but competitors still preferred endless dancing. Just trying to endure the time to being unemployed and homeless. Both of those situations are horrible. So one man who made a name for himself, if you make a name for yourself in something, you become famous for that activity you're involved in. So we could say Elon Musk has made a name for himself with electric cars and his plans to go to space. So you can make a name for yourself in different ways. He made a name for himself in this era or this time period. And his name was Callum de Villiers or de Villiers. It's a French name. Kind of an interesting name. It's fun to go look at these old historical names that we just don't use anymore. Like Callum isn't exactly popular either. Now, era. We talk about eras or era. It could be pronounced that way too. Era or era. I was going to say 都可以. So they're both okay. It's a distinct period of history with a particular feature or maybe some characteristics like the computer era. We could talk about that, or social media era. Even when I was growing up, there was no internet, which was really different. It's changed life a lot. So this guy made a name for himself during this era. He had a partner. His name was Vonnie Kuczynski. And he emerged victorious. If you emerge victorious, it just means you won. He would win one dance marathon that lasted from December. This is craziness. I had to read this twice, Tom. He lasted in a dance marathon that went from December 1932 to June 1933. And all for a cash reward of $1,000. So think about 6 months of this endurance contest, and all he earned was $1,000. Of course, $1,000 was a lot of money back then, but who does that?
Right, that's pretty weird. And, of course, I don't know if he had lots of rest time during that dance marathon there.
Well, the rule is 15 minutes an hour, right?
Right, so my goodness, he slept for 15 minutes every hour for 6 months or whatever. That's a long time there. It's kind of difficult to believe, but our internet sources confirm this. So that's kind of extreme for these dance marathons. And he did it all for just $1,000.
But you can also die from lack of sleep, which we even see in the news today with kids who play video games too long.
Yeah, so watch out for that. Thankfully, these kinds of competitions are no longer popular, but they still exist in some more modified, shorter form, which we'll get to in just a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
But let's go into the next paragraph here, and it says, you might wonder, or you might imagine, how this feat was achieved. Yeah, how was this feat achieved? Here, feat does not refer to the things at the bottoms of your legs. F-E-A-T, feat is some kind of accomplishment, some kind of achievement. You could perform an acrobatic feat, like doing 3 flips in the air or something after jumping on a trampoline. That would be an acrobatic feat. But in this particular case, we're asking the question, how was this feat achieved? How did he do it?
Yeah, a common phrase we'll use sometimes with feat is, oh, that was no small feat. Meaning, wow, that was pretty impressive. So this guy dancing that long, you could say, wow, that was no small feat to go from December to June So we're going to tell you a little bit more about how the feat was achieved. The next sentence kind of made me smile when I read it. The first time it says dance marathons had rules to protect the health of the participants.I'm not sure how strong those rules were because it seems like these dance marathons would really destroy someone's health just by participating for a couple of days. We're going to talk more about this, guys, but first, we're going to take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们昨天提到跳舞马拉松在1929年的时候遇到了整个美国股市的大崩盘，造成了经济的大萧条。当然因为经济的大萧条在当时为整个美国带来了很多的艰辛啊苦难，可是大家还是继续跳舞耶。而且因为观众就是很渴望任何可以让他们从痛苦当中分散注意力的事物，所以跳舞马拉松它的吸引力还是持续的存在。那么当然比赛的时间呢甚至持续的更久，但是参赛者宁可无止境的跳舞，却不愿意失业啦，或者是无家可归。我们在这一段的第3句看到一个动词叫做 prefer， 注意它的用法哦，宁愿 A 比较于 B， prefer A to B， 也就是比较喜欢 A 而比较不喜欢 B。 注意后面的这个 to 是一个介系词哦。好，那么在当时啊，有一个人很出名，这个人叫做 de Villiers， 因为他跟他的舞伴啊 Kukinski 从那个时候1932年的12月持续跳到隔年的6月，我的妈呀，而且只为了1000元的美金的奖金。好，我们来看一下这一段的第4句当中，我们先看一下这个出名的人的 Villiers， 其实他有一个关系子句哦，先行词是 one man， 就是我们看到的主词，关系子句从 who 一直到后面的 era， 中间我们看到有一个片语叫做 make a name for oneself， 出名了，在这个时代为自己出名，谁呢？这个人呢就叫做 Colin de Villiers。 好，接下来的第5句我们看到他的舞伴叫做 Kuczynski， 那么他如何，我们在句子当中同样也看到了一个关系子句，先行词是 one dance marathon， 一场跳舞马拉松，后面的 that一直到破折号前面是关系子句，那么中间的动词 lasted 就是持续的意思，所以整个持续了6个月哦，破折号之后告诉我们只为了1000元美金的这种奖金诶。好，我们大概想说怎么可能有人可以连续跳6个月的舞呢？我们可能想要知道这个 feat 这种攻击啦或者是壮举到底怎么办到的。其实跳舞马拉松有保护参赛者健康的一些规则哦，他们不需要不停的跳舞。我们看一下第2段第2句的地方，同样也有关系子句，先行词是 the participants 参赛者，那么关系子句从 who 一直到句尾的地方，中间的文意是他们也就是参赛者不需要连续跳舞 without pausing，并没有休息，所以接下来我们就会来看一下到底是什么样的一种休息规则。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
All right, let's continue with our lesson. Again, we were talking about the feat that was accomplished by Callum de Villiers. I hope I said that right. And he had a partner. They participated in a dance marathon, and he was able to dance from December 1932 all the way to June the following year, and he won $1,000. Now, you might wonder again how this feat was achieved. How did he accomplish this? Well, again, dance marathons had rules to protect the health of the participants who weren't required to dance without pausing. So, yeah, I guess you would probably think that if it's a dance marathon, you're supposed to keep on dancing and you're not supposed to stop. But here the rules said, yeah, you can stop. If you don't stop, you're going to die, and we don't want you to collapse on the dance floor. and you might sue us or something like that because we died or whatever. So, yes, they weren't required to dance without pausing. In other words, they could pause, they could take breaks. Dancers could take a 15-minute break every hour to eat or to use the bathroom. So you dance for 45 minutes, and then you get a 15-minute break. You can sit down, have a meal, go to the bathroom, and then you have to continue.
Right. However, this had to be done in shifts. So one partner danced alone while the other freshened up. And I think that probably was more difficult as time went on because most of these dance marathon movies and TV shows I've seen, partners are literally leaning on each other, trying to stay up on their feet. So if you had to dance alone, it would be even tougher, I'm sure. You probably were anxious for your partner to come back. But it said this had to be done in shifts. So they would take turns. Now, if you freshen up, usually this is a word that you'll hear from females or women more often than men. Although if you've just finished a long flight, you might want to go freshen up in your hotel room before you dash off to go sightseeing. Maybe wash your face, go to the bathroom, maybe brush your teeth, comb your hair. With women, you might want to check your makeup, but you just want to freshen up because you feel kind of like, ugh, you look terrible, you feel terrible. And it helps if you go and freshen up every once in a while.
And they could also take turns sleeping. So if you take turns, of course, one person does something while you're doing something else. Oftentimes this happens when kids want to do the same thing. For example, maybe you're at the playground and you want to swing on the swings, but there's only one swing there, so you have to take turns. You do it now, and then I'll wait for my turn. So here they're taking turns sleeping. You sleep while I dance, and then when you're done sleeping, I will sleep, and then you will dance.
Yeah, that's probably one of the first phrases kids learn growing up. You have to take turns. If they have another brother or sister, especially in the family. Oh, kids don't like to take turns, but you have to learn to take turns. You do it, and then you wait while somebody else gets to do it. You take turns. So despite these rules, though, dance marathons could still be fatal, which is easy to imagine, actually, because even today people overdo things and they end up dying. If it's fatal, it causes death. So if you see in the news that there was a fatal car accident or a fatal scooter accident, you know that someone passed away or someone died in that accident. There was a fatal fire, a fatal shooting. Usually you see these words in the news more often than not. So one man named Homer Morehouse, kind of an old-fashioned name, he collapsed on the dance floor and died of exhaustion after dancing 87 hours. That's crazy. Yeah, well, it happens. Your body isn't, made to be used continuously. We're not robots. So you have to take care of your health. And one of the most important things is drinking water. We can go without food for a long time. Drinking water and rest. If you don't sleep, your body will collapse and you probably will pass away. You'll die.
Yep, you won't be standing anymore. You will pass out, you will collapse, and I think he died from exhaustion because of dancing for 87 hours. So his name was Homer. I would hate to make the joke that he died because he's got such a dumb name. Nobody really has the name Homer anymore. Except for
Homer Simpson.
Yeah, I was going to say that Homer Simpson is the only one I can think of.
Yeah, I don't know any Homers.
I don't know any either. I knew a guy named Kermit back in my hometown.
That's great.
Which is weird. It was really his name. He was named that before Kermit the Frog existed.
Oh, that's hard, yeah.
Yeah, there are lots of old names that we don't really use anymore. Like Alma, the woman who first set the record there. Back in 1923, I believe we talked about that last time. But again, Homer Morehouse collapsed on the dance floor, and he died of exhaustion. He was exhausted because dancing was so exhausting. And here in the next paragraph it says, The dance marathon craze eventually ran its course. If something runs its course, it basically is finished. It cannot continue. People are bored of it. We could say that about the roller skating craze that was popular in the 60s and 70s. People like to go to roller skating rinks and listen to music and roller skate, but it ran its course. Eventually, people got bored of it, and nobody does that anymore.
Wow, I haven't thought about roller skating rinks for a long time. So World War II and the subsequent economic boom meant people no longer needed to dance for days on end just for a little money. So here we've got World War II. And then we've got a vocab word, subsequent. Subsequent just means something that comes after something in time. So it follows something else. So you could say World War II and the economic boom that followed. You could write that. Or the following economic boom. I know in Taiwan you guys tend to say economic. They're both correct. I grew up with economic. But yeah, subsequent economic boom. So after the Great Depression and then World War II, the economy actually started to boom. So people were doing much better. A boom just means things go up. It's also a sound, right? If a bomb goes off, boom! Or, you drop something really loud. A boom is very loud and deep, that sound. But here it just means things were doing very well. The economy was kind of exploding. It was flourishing. Remember that word we learned? Flourishing. It was doing very well. So people no longer needed to dance for days on end. We'll often use that phrase, on end, days on end, weeks on end. Months on end just means something that just seems to go on and on and on. Oh, I've been working on this project for months on end, and I'm still not finished. Typically, you'll hear days on end the most, but we can put it with other time words like years on end, days on end, months on end. Yeah, we do use it quite a bit to talk about something that just seems to never end.
Yeah, I hate to bring up this example, but sometimes in Taipei, it rains for days on end, especially during the winter months. Sometimes it does rain every day. It rains for days on end. And yes, indeed, people did not need to dance for days on end anymore just for a little money because everybody had high-paying jobs. After World War II, there was the baby boom, for example. And in the 1970s, the idea was brought back as a fundraising activity with a 30-hour maximum duration to protect dancers' health. Yeah, I think I remember the 70s when dance marathons were brought back, but it was a fundraising activity, an activity to raise money or to raise funds for charity, maybe to help out poor people or starving children in developing countries. You get the idea.
Yeah, a fund is just some money that's meant for a particular project. Maybe you have a house buying fund or a house fund where you're saving money to buy a house someday. So it's for a particular purpose. Money used or put aside for a particular purpose. Duration is just how long something's going to last, right? So most TV shows have a 2-hour duration or a 1-hour duration. Movies that have a 3-hour duration are too long for me. So duration just means the time that something happens. So the 30-hour maximum sounds like it was plenty long enough. There's no way I would dance for 30 hours. So people still take part in 12 or 24-hour dance events for charity. Yeah, that's when people do it. They do it not because they're starving or cold and they want to get inside from the cold. They do it to help raise money for the less fortunate or the needy, for some of these charities that are throwing the dance event or putting on the dance event.
Right, so they're raising money for the kinds of unfortunate souls or people similar to those who once had to move their bodies to music for weeks at a time simply to survive. So that's basically what these charity events are for people who are desperate for money. So back then they were desperate for money, so they danced in dance marathons. Nowadays, hopefully some of these charities can help out those poor people so they don't have to keep on living on the street. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
因为舞者其实每个小时就有15分钟的休息时间，可以吃东西啦，或者是用厕所啦，但是一定要轮班哦。轮班的话 do something in shifts 出现在第二段第4句的当中， in shifts 就是轮班的意思。然后逗点之后呢，看到一个 so 表示结果，那么这样子的话呢，有一个舞伴就必须要单独跳舞哦。while 在这里表示时间或者是对比都可以，因为两两一组嘛，所以另外一个舞伴在梳洗的时候，这个另外一个 the other 两者之一 one 另外一个 the other 当然还可以睡觉诶，但是要轮流 take turns doing something 这片语出现在第5句的地方。好，但是虽然有这些规定啊，跳舞马拉松还是有可能 fatal 很致命哦。因为有一个男生叫做 Morehouse， 他跳了87个小时的舞之后，他在舞池昏倒，然后就死了。我们来看一下第二段最后这一句第7句的地方，有2个动词，第一个动词 collapsed 也就是昏倒，倒在舞池当中。第二个动词 died off。die off 或者是 die from 都是因什么什么原因而死亡的意思。好，那当然最后这个热潮终于会自然结束啦，因为第2次世界大战跟随之而来的经济繁荣，指的就是大家其实不用为了一点钱，然后连续跳好多天的舞。那么在西元1970年代 dance marathon 这种跳舞的马拉松的这个想法呢，这个 idea 又重新被提出来，其实当成一个募款活动，但是为了要保护舞者的健康，所以最长只能够持续30个小时。我们来看一下最后一段第3段的第3句，逗点之后有一个 with， 可是在这里不是表示原因哦，而是附带的是30小时的 maximum duration， 最长的持续时间。那么因为它也是一个介系词，但是可以表示附带状况。那么最后面呢，我们来看一下，那大家呢都还是很喜欢参加12小时啊，或者是24小时的一些慈善跳舞活动。那么目的就是要为了那些曾经为了生存而不得不随着音乐舞动身体长达好几周的不幸灵魂而募款。最后这一句话有一个关系子句哦，先行词是 the kinds of unfortunate souls 那些不幸的灵魂，而关系子句从 who 一直到最尾巴结束 survive 的地方。好，希望大家呢有空可以跳跳舞，但是不要跳太久哦。我是安娜，我们下次见。
That's it for today, everybody. You don't have to participate in a dance marathon, but you can head down to your local club or whatever and listen to some dance music and have yourself one heck of a time. Dance is still alive. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.